Las Vegas, 1973. The spotlight was blinding, the crowd of 20,000 louder than thunder, until Elvis saw her. In the third row, Priscilla sat with tears running down her face. He stopped mid-song, dropped the mic, and walked off stage. What he did next became one of the most shocking moments in music history. The Las Vegas Hilton was roaring that night, November 17, 1973. Every seat filled, every flashbulb blinking like a restless heartbeat. Elvis Presley stood at center stage in a white jumpsuit embroidered with gold eagles, his face glowing under the lights. He'd already burned through Suspicious Minds and Burning Love, each note echoing off the mirrored walls of the showroom. The crowd of 20,000 moved with him, spellbound. It was supposed to be a perfect show. But at 10:47 p.m., something shifted. As he began Can't Help Falling in Love, Elvis's eyes drifted across the front rows, scanning faces he'd seen 100 times before. Then he saw her, Priscilla, sitting quietly in the third row, dressed in a simple white suit, hands clasped in her lap, her face calm, except for one thing: tears. For a second, he thought the lights were playing tricks. But they weren't. She was crying. His voice caught. He missed a lyric, then another. The crowd kept swaying, unaware that the man on stage wasn't breathing through the song anymore. He was staring at a ghost from his own life. The band, led by James Burton, tried to keep rhythm. Ronnie Tutt's drums rolled behind him, but Elvis didn't hear a thing. All he could see was the woman who once promised him forever, now sitting there, crying, surrounded by strangers who were cheering for the version of him that had destroyed them both. He faltered again. The audience started to notice. A low murmur spread through the room. "Is he okay?" someone whispered near the stage. Then silence. The king of rock and roll stopped singing mid-verse. The mic trembled in his hand. He looked straight at Priscilla, eyes wide, lips pressed tight. And then, without warning, he dropped the microphone. It hit the stage with a hollow thud. The band froze. The crowd gasped. The lights stayed on him like a spotlight frozen in disbelief. Elvis turned, muttered something no one caught, and walked off the stage. No bow, no explanation, just gone. The audience erupted. Some shouting, others clapping nervously, unsure if this was part of the act. Colonel Tom Parker, his manager, nearly choked on his cigar backstage as security swarmed toward the curtain. Behind the stage, Elvis's footsteps echoed down the hallway. Heavy, angry, desperate. He ripped off his scarf, tossing it to the floor, breathing hard. "She's crying," he whispered to himself. "She's sitting out there crying, and I can't sing to that." Joe Esposito, his longtime friend and bodyguard, caught up to him. What happened out there?" Elvis spun around. "She's here, Joe. Priscilla's here." His voice cracked. "You saw her? She was crying. I can't stand up there pretending like that doesn't tear me apart." Joe tried to steady him. The crowd's waiting. You can't just walk out." But Elvis wasn't listening. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing like a man trapped inside his own legend. "You tell Parker the show's over if she walks out that door." Joe's jaw dropped. "You can't mean that." "I mean every damn word," Elvis said. "I've sung through pain, exhaustion, heartbreak, but I won't sing through that. Not tonight." In the distance, muffled voices from the ballroom carried through the corridor. The audience was still waiting. Backstage crew members whispered, "He's done. He's really walked off." No one knew what was happening, but one thing was certain. The king had never done this before. He stood there, fists clenched, eyes closed, sweat dripping from his temples. "Why now, Scylla?" he muttered. "Why tonight of all nights?" The sound of approaching footsteps made him turn. A faint click of heels echoed down the hallway. He looked up and froze. Priscilla was standing there, just a few feet away. Her eyes red, her hands shaking slightly. "Elvis," she whispered. For a moment, the noise of the crowd vanished completely. It was just the two of them, standing in the half-light of the backstage corridor. "What are you doing here?" he asked. His voice was low, trembling, a mix of anger and disbelief. I needed to see you, she said. To see if the man I knew is still somewhere in there. He swallowed hard. You shouldn't have come. Maybe, she said softly. But I couldn't stay away. Elvis took a step closer, eyes locked on hers. The sound of the band starting to play again floated faintly from the stage, but neither of them heard it. He whispered, almost to himself, "This night's about to change everything." And it did, because in the next few minutes Elvis Presley, the man the world thought it knew, would reveal a side no one had ever seen before. Backstage at the Las Vegas Hilton, panic spread like wildfire. The stage lights still blazed as the crowd murmured in confusion. Colonel Tom Parker stormed through the curtains, his cigar trembling between his fingers. "Where is he?" he barked. "Get Elvis back out there." But Elvis Presley wasn't listening to anyone. He was pacing in a narrow hallway behind the stage, hands shaking, chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. His white jumpsuit, once spotless, was streaked with sweat. The gold belt around his waist felt heavier than ever, like the weight of a crown he no longer wanted. Joe Esposito followed close behind. The Colonel's losing his mind. You can't just walk out in the middle of a show." Elvis stopped, turning sharply. "I just did. 20,000 people are out there," Joe pleaded. Elvis's voice dropped to a whisper, trembling but fierce. "And she's out there crying. I can't sing to that, Joe. You hear me? I can't sing to that." He rubbed his eyes, trying to erase the image burned into his mind. Priscilla's tearful face glowing under the spotlight, unmoving amid the chaos of cheering fans. "She looked at me like I was a stranger," he muttered, "like she didn't recognize the man on that stage." Joe's voice softened. "Maybe she didn't." Elvis spun around, jaw tightening. "Don't start with me, Joe. Not tonight." The hallway smelled of sweat and stage lights, the hum of amplifiers bleeding faintly through the walls. A stagehand crept by, whispering into a headset, "The king's off the stage." Yes, completely off. Colonel Parker appeared moments later, red-faced and fuming. "Son, you've lost your damn mind," he snapped. "You don't walk off in the middle of Can't Help Falling in Love. You finish the show, then you break down. That's how we do it." Elvis met his gaze, calm but burning inside. "You ever try singing about love while the only woman you ever really loved is sitting 20 feet away? Crying?" The Colonel puffed his cigar and scoffed. "You're the king, not a choir boy. The crowd doesn't care about your tears. They paid for a show." Elvis took a step closer. His voice dropped low, sharp as a knife. "Maybe that's the problem, Colonel. I stopped caring about the show." Parker's face twisted. "You better get yourself together, son, or Vegas will remember this as the night Elvis Presley fell apart." Elvis brushed past him, his steps echoing down the corridor. "Maybe they should," he muttered. Joe followed again, worried. Where you going?" "To breathe." He turned into a side hallway, away from the noise, away from the stagehands staring like they were watching the end of an empire. The air was cooler there, the dim bulbs flickering overhead. Elvis leaned against the wall, closing his eyes. The sound of the crowd was faint but still there, a dull, restless thunder that refused to fade. He could almost hear their confusion, their whispers. What happened? Why'd he stop? He exhaled deeply. "Because I finally saw the truth." Joe said carefully. "You sure you're not just seeing what you want to see?" Elvis shook his head. "She didn't come here for the show, Joe. She came because she had to see if I was still in there somewhere. And when I saw her cry," he paused, swallowing hard, "that was the moment I realized maybe I'm not." Joe said nothing. He'd been with Elvis long enough to know when silence was safer than comfort. A soft voice broke the tension. "Elvis." They both turned. Priscilla stood a few feet away, framed by the glow of the backstage lights. Her eyes were red, mascara faintly smudged, her composure fragile but steady. Elvis froze, every muscle in his body tightening. "Scylla?" Joe stepped back quietly, giving them space. She walked closer, her heels clicking softly against the floor. "You left them out there," she said. "I left you out there, he corrected. I couldn't keep pretending. She folded her arms, looking down for a moment before meeting his eyes again. I didn't come here to make a scene, Elvis. Then why? His voice cracked. Why come at all? Priscilla hesitated, the quiet stretching between them. Because I wanted to see the man I used to know. The one who sang because he loved it, not because the world demanded it. He stared at her, unable to look away. You think he's gone? He asked. She nodded softly. I think he's dying, Elvis. The words hit him like a slap. He took a step back, breathing unevenly. Then maybe I'll save him tonight. She frowned. What does that mean? Elvis didn't answer. Instead, he straightened his collar, the glint of stage lights flickering against the gold sequins. His expression changed, not angry, not broken, but resolved. Joe called from down the hall. What are you doing? Elvis turned toward him, voice steady now. I'm finishing what I started. But this time, it's not for them. He brushed past both of them, heading back toward the stage. The crowd's restless hum grew louder as he neared the curtain. Priscilla watched him go, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Elvis! She called after him. He stopped, looked back once, and smiled. That same quiet, vulnerable smile she'd fallen in love with years ago. Stay, he said softly. You'll want to hear this. And with that, he disappeared into the glare of the stage lights, leaving her in the half-dark with only one thought repeating in her mind. What was he about to do? Elvis stood just behind the velvet curtain, gripping the microphone like a lifeline. He could hear the crowd's restless murmur, thousands of voices unsure if the king would return or if the show was truly over. Backstage, the tension was electric. Stagehands whispered. Colonel Parker barked into a phone. Joe Esposito hovered nearby, watching his friend like a man balancing between collapse and redemption. Then, through the noise, one soft voice cut through everything. Elvis! He turned. Priscilla stood in the corridor, just a few feet away. The light behind her caught the gold trim of his jumpsuit, making her look almost ghostly, part memory, part reality. For a second, he couldn't speak. Then, quietly, You shouldn't be here. She stepped closer. Neither should you. He frowned. What does that mean? She held his gaze unflinching. You're out there singing about love, but you look like a man who hasn't felt it in years. He swallowed hard. You think I don't feel it? Every song I sing is me trying to remember what it felt like to be loved by you. She shook her head. You're remembering the version of me that belonged to the crowd, the one that smiled for the cameras. You never wanted to see what was left when the lights went out. Elvis's jaw tightened. Don't talk like you know me, Scylla. I did, she said softly. Once. The silence between them stretched, fragile as glass. He finally broke it. You came here tonight just to say that? I came to say goodbye, she replied. The words hit him harder than any headline, any rumor, any betrayal. His throat closed, his pulse quickened. He looked down at his shaking hands. Goodbye. You mean after everything we've been through? Her voice was calm, but her eyes glistened. After everything. He turned away, pacing toward the dressing table cluttered with scarves and half-empty water glasses. You don't get to end this like it's nothing. She stepped closer, her reflection appearing beside his in the mirror. It's not nothing, Elvis. It's everything. That's why it has to stop. He spun around, his voice rising. Not angry, but desperate. I walked off that stage because of you, because seeing you cry ripped the ground out from under me. You still think this doesn't matter. Her own voice cracked now. Then why did you let it get this far? You've been hiding behind that stage for years. Behind the fans, the lights, the noise. He blinked, stunned. You think the audience loves you because of who you are, she continued. But they love the idea of you. And somewhere along the way, you started loving that idea too. The words lingered, brutal and true. Elvis sank into the chair, burying his face in his hands. You think I don't know that? Every time the crowd screams my name, it just reminds me how far I've fallen from being human. Priscilla's voice softened. Then be human again. He looked up. How? She hesitated. By remembering why you ever sang in the first place. For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of the amplifiers seeped through the walls. Somewhere backstage, someone was still trying to stall the crowd. Elvis stood slowly. His expression changed, the exhaustion replaced by something else. Resolve. You said the man you knew is dying, he murmured. Maybe I can bring him back tonight. Her eyes searched his face. What are you talking about? He moved toward the curtain, gripping the edge of it. You'll see. Priscilla reached out, catching his wrist. Elvis, don't do something reckless. He turned back, eyes blazing with a rare kind of clarity. No, Silla. For the first time in years, I'm going to do something real. She could see it. The trembling in his fingers, the flicker of emotion buried under layers of fame and fear. Elvis, she said quietly, the crowd doesn't need saving. You do. He smiled faintly. Then let me save myself the only way I know how. The sound of the band tuning faintly reached them from the stage. The audience was still waiting, unaware that history was about to change. Priscilla crossed her arms, trying to hide her worry. What are you planning? He looked at her, eyes steady now. A song. One last honest song. She frowned. They've heard every song you've got. Not this one, he said. For a few seconds, all she heard was the low hum of the crowd and the faint squeak of his boots against the floor. Then he stepped closer to her. You said the man you loved is dying. Maybe you're right. But before he's gone, I want him to tell you the truth. She blinked away tears. And what truth is that? Elvis leaned in, his voice trembling. That I never stopped singing for you. Not one night. Not one song. Even when I pretended not to care, every note was yours. Priscilla's eyes filled again, but she didn't look away. Then why tell me now? He smiled sadly. Because I'm running out of chances to say it. The words hit like thunder. She couldn't move. He pulled back, straightened his collar, and glanced toward the curtain. I've got to get back out there before the Colonel explodes. Elvis, she whispered. He paused. If this is your last show, she said, make it count. Make it honest. He gave a single nod. That's the plan. And then, with a deep breath, he pushed through the curtain. The sound that hit him on the other side was deafening. Cheers, flashes, applause. But this time it didn't feel like pressure. Felt like freedom. He looked over his shoulder one last time. Priscilla was standing there, half in shadow, watching him with tears in her eyes. He smiled, that same crooked grin that once made the world fall in love, and whispered under his breath, then maybe I'll save him tonight. And with that, Elvis Presley walked back into the light. Not as a performer, but as a man trying to make peace with the only song that ever truly mattered. The air inside the Hilton showroom felt different when Elvis stepped back on stage. It wasn't just noise anymore, it was a heartbeat. 20,000 people leaned forward as the spotlight followed him to the mic stand. For a moment he just stood there, motionless, silent. The band waited. The Colonel froze mid-puff on his cigar. Even the crowd stopped clapping. Elvis looked down, took a slow breath, and lifted the microphone. His voice came out quiet, steady. Ladies and gentlemen, there's someone here tonight who taught me what love really is, and I forgot to thank her.
De audience went stil. As singlik hou geëtjut from te baltonei. Hy staan te room intil his ees fanta. Priscilla standing by the side giftuin, half hidden in the dark. Hy gaf a small note, almost invisible, bid sy save teneter net back to the band. Ja miss, hy said softly, kei of je. The first notice of always om my min drifte trouge te hal. Hy closet his ees aan began to sing his voice tremblet on the first line, not from ner face, but from something deeper. Jach word carried weiget, regret, trutte. De sound rolet trouge te Hilton ballroom like aproaier dis geiset as melodie. My beïdentreerd ou kuite as goed as is heldhaven. Te kroft was mesmeriset. Tes wasn't te confident so man ty kneef, tes was so met een graf ingejaardet. Der Band slowet begint hem instinctiefly verloving his emotion instead of te seet missies. Hy open het his ees antloke towaard te wings. Tes ones voor ou, Silla his sight into the mouth. Gasps riplet trouge te audiense. Even te backup singers et sangets te net glansjes. Te worlds moest private hartbreek had jest been spoken out loud. Elvis kept going, his foite rou gebid powerful. Everyline sounded like an apology wrapped in melody. Maybe I didn't hold ou altoose lonely teames. Halfway trouge te song, het dit so meting no unexpected. Hy leef te stage. Dis is hierdie geaard stiffenet as 'n walke dowente center eisle, mikropone kort trailing behint hem. Te kroef partet like te retsia, flasbulbs popping as 'n passet. Poplar reachet out to touchy sleeve, bid hy wasn't looking at them. Hy was walking stryge towaard her. The band kept plying slower nog following his passe. De audiense vel silent, de kind of silense tatams, jafai witte awe. Elvis stop het besiede her. Priscilla stoot verzen, Hans klaspet, jy is wet. Hy sang te net line de red lei to her. Little things is held half a sight aan done. Hy is never toek te tieme. Is foite krak het ontieme. Te micropone valget het, te imperfection tat made te moment real. Priscilla's lips tremblet, but she didn't move. He reached it out, brushed it a tear from her cheek with the back of his hand, and kept singing. Te kroft killed hartlei briate. Even te kolonel, ishalei emotionless dieringshofs, wiepet his voorreed and whispered, Lord help us, his making history. Wenta final chorus began, Elvis net back towaard te stage bid didn't let go of her hand. Hy lifted tyr joinet hands into te ligget as 'n sang te last line, ou were alwys om my mind. Te words hang in te long after te musiek stop het. No one klap het at first. Te jest satere stinnet tears glistening inder te liggets. Ten slovlei one by one te audiense rose toe its veet. As standing of wat jo'n inlike aanheiting vergas had verseen. Elvis lover te mik, look het at Priscilla, and whispered so meting onlyse kultea. No one valget te words, not the band, not you, not even the reporters waiting outside. Bid wat ver his sight made her close her ees and not, tear streaming down her face. He kissed her voorhead gentlei, not like a performer tanking afan, bid like a man sawing a final goed bye. Ten het net, klim het bak onto te stage, and face te kroft. The applause tendered around him. Flashbulbs exploded. The band waited for a she, but Elvis just stood there, soaking into sound, letting it was a uverhemlijke redemption. Wente ufatjon finale vadet, Heliane towaard de micropone one lastime. Thank you very much, he said softly. Anten, without another word, he said the misdoven, walked opstage, and disappeared into the darkness. Back in the wings, you is supposed to try to speak, but Elvis raised a hand. Not no. The kolonel riset forward, furious and bewildered. How made a fool of ourself out there? Elvis ignoreert him. Het net to you and whispered, get her some weer kayet. You nodded moedjoning for Priscilla to follow. Sy glansed bak onze at te empty stage, te golden spotlig het stil glowing weer het stoot. Behint him, te audiense erupted agen, chanting his name, in a ware te had just witnessed one of the most vulnerable moments of his life. As te kiertuin fell, Elvis lingered behint it for a 5 seconds, listening. Hy whispered in his briate, dat one was voor haar. Antwoord hy verstieme in eiers, his melet, not te praktisch het grin of alliggend, bid te kai het smiele of a man wo had finaliseit wat words alone nie verkeld. Wat wilt ou have done in dat moment? Wilt ou hierde behint priede o risk verreiting to sing houer trette? Backstage, te sound of te kroft stil tenderet trouge te wals, uitjonglike a living heartbeat. Te kiertuins had already vallen bid inside te dressing corridor, Timothy met vroezen. Elvis stood alone in front of the mirror, his reflection trembling in the golden bulb staat Lynette te frame. His chest rose and fell, jafai, almost soaking. Drops of sweat rolled down his neck, touching liggend like small diamonds. Hy felt stil hier het dat moment. Te weite audiense gaspet. Te selense dat volle wet. Te tremor in his onvoise wene whisper het haar name. Tente door open het softlei. Priscilla step het in. Voor a long sekond neiter sy't al word. Sy look het different nog, kalmer, lichter, asof someting inspoken had finaliseerd between them. Elvis ter net toe waard haar, is voite barlei above a whisper. Huishoudend beheere. Sis me let feindlei. Neiters hult ou. Hy gaf a soort lage, half pijn, half relief. Gies vir 'n botebreking te rilles tonig het. Sy move het closer, te soft klik of haar heel skitting trouge te him of te haar conditioner. Hou didn't have to do dat outere se side. Hem met haar eres. Eis I dit. Sy tilt het haar jat, curious. Hy. Bechose I oorwet uit te trette, hy side simplei. Voor onze, I wanted him to see het real man begin te kroeven. Te one woe mes het ip. Te one woe stil loof is ou. Haar breate vaag het. Elvis, hy look het dovnat his hands, te same hands dat had held microponis, geitars, fame and uittonig het, ty trem letlike aboeis. Hou knov wats van hy side. I versing dat song 100 times. Bid tonig het was der first time I actually meant het. Sy step het closer, lowering haar voice. And what happens nog? Elvis sig het. Nov. Is my let sat lei. Nove let te song end. Priscilla vroeg net soft lei. Hou my anis. Hy look het ep, jy is glas hy bid kalm. We end het a long time ago, Silla. Tonig het wasn't about fitsing dat. It was about saing goed by rig het. Sy blink het baktears. Hou realiteit tanktes was goed by hy. Hy nodded. Ja. Te kind verbote disservet. Voor of hele neiter spoke. Te lofbis of stage irreipment hem met trouge te wals. Some were in te distance, afan was stilshouting his name. Elvis ter net back to the mirror, picking ipa terwyl to weep it is sweat from his face. Hou knof, you told me to apologete to te kroft. Side it look unprofessional. And wat het ou sy sasket. Hy grin het feindlei. I told him loofe isn't professional. Sy laag het softlei saking haar jat. Hou hafen chang het. Hy look het at haar trouge te mirror. Hou hafe. Haar schmiele vadet, replaat het by someting tenner. I had toe. Hy sê dit te wel doven. Hou weer always stronger dan me. Sy walk het behind hem, close en ouge dat hy veld sê haar reflection besiede is. Hou weer never wiak, Elvis. Hou weer die man. Hou voor God tats en ouge. Het net, vaatsing haar verleinhof. By niemand duisend cel records. My benot, sy side. Bid het safesils. Voor een moment, ty just staar het at iach otter no mises, no cameras, no noise. Just hoop op lewo had servifet someting toe big voorwaarts. Finally, sy reach het into haar perse and pull it out a folded piece of paper. If wrote it his weeks ago, sy side, handing it to him. Didn't think it ever get the chance to give it to how. Hy unfolded it slowly. It was a letter sort, handwritten in haar neat, careful stripped. How I said to sing to me before it a word listen it. I don't miss the fame. I miss that sound. If I ever vind dat foite achen, keep it don't let it disappear. Hy reed it twisse before looking up. How wrote it is before tonig het. Sy nodded. I gies I just kneef. Hy swallow het hard. Ten maybe is halt verliste net sooner. Hy folded the note and slipped it into his chest pocket. Tes one staing with me, he said softly. Sis me let. Ten maybe I gaan finale liafe het behend. Elvis foite trek het slig lei. En nie verwante toe hurt ou. Ek knof sy side. Bid ou had toe lieve ouer driam. Ies dint realise hoe much het wald kost bote of is. Tis lense dat volle wit wasend afkwaard. Het was vir like twee liefes finale making piase witte te same storm. Elvis step het voorwaarts aan toe haar hand gintlei. Huil alwijs bepaard of te song, Priscilla. Sy skeer het his vingers. Ten sing het rig te stieme. His melet, tears glinting in his eyes. Ik denk if hy nalei dit. Ty stoot tere voor another moment, saying nothing. Ten sy let goe of his hand, ter net toe waar te door aan pauset. Goednig het, Elvis. Hy nodded, his voete soft. Goed by je, Priscilla. Sy gaf hem ohne last look, not as te iets wiefe of alliggend bid as te gerol woe onze beliefheid in te man bevore te meite. Ten sy walk het uit. Wente door kloos het behind haar, Elvis ter net bak to te mirror. Te reflection dat staar het bak was een tikking of rok aan rol. Het was just a man, tiret, him let, finale honest. He reached it into his pocket, feeling the folded letter. Ten his melet. Uitsiede, te sound of applause began agen, te bandploying aan outro voor a man woed already left te stage. Elvis whisper het in his breath, ou weer richt, Priscilla. I found him agen. Antwoord hy verstieme in a long time, he believed it because so metimus, te most powerful en voor duizend happen in front of a croft, it happens after te lig het school out. Ten next morning, las Vegas woke ep to headliness ta den siem real. Elvis walks of stage ten brings Vegas to tears. No one kneef exactly wat had happened, but if verhuine was talking about it ten neefspapers call it impulsive. Te kritisch shall it strange. But for the 20,000 people who weer het here tat nigit, it was invoorgetable. Te Hilton staff side te iron te room felt different after he left, like so meting satret had passe traug. Evente chandelier sieme to geloof softer. In te dressing room, a stage hand found an old bleeskarf on te vloer beside Elvis Smith. Ticket inside it was a single folded note written in his handwriting, don't tell the story wrong. It wasn't a walkout. It was a walk-up. Wit en duis bootlegtapes of dat sal begin circulating among fans. Hy ook geld hier het kleerlei, te moment is voite krak het, te selense bevore te kroft stoot, te raftremor dat in Sant rearshet at al. Hy start het kalling het te song dat stop het vergas. Dat nig het bekame alliggend. Elvis finis het uit te tower bid someting in hem mat het. Hy was het performing aan hem oore, hy was confessing. Het stil weer te jimsides, stil moe vir wit het dat familie rijt hem, bid is weer softer. Te anger was gone. At every sof dat volle wet, hy sang alwijs om my mind last. Aan bevore hy begaan, hy alwijs sy te same woords, tis ones voor aan jone woe ever let priedigheid in te waai of loofe. Hy never ment u net haar name agen, hy dint niet toe te audiense already kneef. Years later, after his passing, a small letter was found in his desk at Grasseland, written but never mailed. It was addressed simply, Priscilla. Hou weer rig toe go. Bid dank hou voor staying long en nou gevorme toe vind my voike agen. De songs make sense of. I hoop ou hier tem te wei my tem. Dat letter nog sits inside a glas kase in te Grasseland archiewe, displayed net toe a worn uit lyric see het labelet vergas 73 take 4. Visitor stil stop to read het some smelling some crime. Ant at te Hilton decades later a brasplaagje was plated just uitside te myn stage doors. Het reats in tes room, Elvis Presley reminde te world dat loofe is louder dan applause. Priscilla visited dat spot kaitlei ohne evening in 1990s. Sy staat voor less dan 5 minutes, said nothing, and left a single witte rose beneath te plaaie. A hotel worker later said sy was trying, not from sadness, but from something deeper. When asked years later in an interview about that nugget, sy said only this, he didn't sing that song to a croft. Hy sang het toe a moment dat wild never kome bak. De interviewer pauset en sere hof toe respond. Sis me let softly. Bid hom glad te world God toe hier het aan hy wei. Bechouse taat was dit tritte. Elvis Presley's greatest act wasn't his fame or his missies, it was the moment he stopped pretending and let his heart speak louder than the noise around him. Anten doing so, he profeet so meting te world of ten voorgits, even kingsbreak. Bid it's wat hij doe after hij breek dat maak stem timelis. If hij story moefet au, sare het witte somione wo stil belief is in sekond chances. Bechouse behint if liggend is a jaar dat onze weesbereid, sorai. Hafe hou ever sien somione redeemt himself is in a single moment. Tel is in te comments and remember, so met timis, lofes kaietest moments at you the loudest.